And then lastly, we're going to call Olwetu again to the stage to lead a panel called Reimagining Power Structures. This conversation challenges us to think differently about leadership, inclusion, and how we reshape systems to be more equitable, more representative, and more responsive to the realities of women. Joining her on this panel will be Colette Litlojane. I hope I pronounced that okay. She's the Executive Director of the Human Rights Institute of South Africa. Koketso Masisi, the Creative Director of Retroviral, and she's also an award-winning leader in the creative industry. Cameron Kasambala, the spokesperson for Women for Change and an advocate for gender justice. And Tato Titi Mba, a social entrepreneur, real estate investor, and media personality focused on leadership and generational wealth. Can I please have all the panelists kindly? Yeah, Titi bekayenza umsindo le move. Kana athula manje ngoba sibiza igama lakhe. Titi ngicela bonke labantu abasemuva ubalethe nawe, please.
Thank you to my amazing panelists. Today, right now, in this moment, it feels like a whole new other day after that nice, lovely break. We're talking about power. And this might make some of us a little bit uncomfortable in the room, especially those that are sitting in positions of power, those that are still trying to wrestle with the idea of power, and those that find themselves somewhere in the middle. Which usually means that we're exactly where we need to be and we're having the right kind of conversation when things are uncomfortable, right? So let me start with introducing my panelists. I usually love to let them introduce themselves according to what you would like the audience to receive you as. So let me start with you.
It's an honor and privilege to be on this panel. My name is Colette Litlojane. I am the director of the Human Rights Institute of South Africa. Yes, I would like to be referred to as Mom Colette. As you can see, I'm one of the seniors of the country, and I really enjoy my job. My job means a lot to me. I have started doing social justice for decades. I don't know myself doing anything than the job that I'm doing. I respect it. It comes as a calling. And I hope I'll be able to add value into today's conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Over to you, Cameron.
Cookies.
Oh, sorry, Cookies. Sorry. Then it's Cameron, sorry.
No problem. Hi, everyone. My name is Koketso Masisi, and I am a creative director at an agency called Retroviral. I like to go by my name. I was brought into a family and named Koketso because we are a family of small people. And I think carrying that name means adding value wherever I go. So I'd like to leave the room having added value to your lives, whether it's the young ladies sitting in the front here, or somebody who would love to move into an advertising industry, or somebody who would like to learn more about the media industry. I think there is a lot to learn. So thank you.
The right Cameron.
There we go. Hello, everyone. I am Cameron Kasambala. I am a master's student. I've got my bachelor's in psychology, and I am the spokesperson at Women for Change. I am very excited to be here. I was looking at everyone looking so beautiful today, and I feel very honored because if I'd asked 15-year-old me what she'd be doing in 10 years, I don't think she thought she would be here. And I'm just very grateful to be invited to come and speak and have this conversation. And I think I'm eager to bridge that gap between advocacy and psychology and see how that influences our conversations around power.
Also a chartered marketer by profession, but what I love the most is my social entrepreneurship work. I like to regard myself as a jack of all trade, master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one.
Why do systems resist change? Cameron, I'm going to start with you.
So I actually wrote a definition down of what power is because I thought that would help set the tone. And I wrote that it is historically entrenched, structurally enforced, and often violently maintained systems of domination. And I think that those things speak to why power is so held on to tightly and why we struggle to dismantle power. I think when you're coming from an understanding of the history of what it was, being in South Africa and the experience that we had such a violent history, there's such a violent culture that was adopted, and I think we've almost normalized and socialized this culture of control. And I think control and domination is what people perceived as power. And when people feel like their power is being taken away, they become very defensive and they become very protective of that power. And trying to shift that dynamic, even if it's to bring equality to them, speaks to almost taking away their power. And I think that's something we really struggle with when it comes to these spaces and dealing with these dynamics is, for some reason, no matter how much we emphasize that it's about equity and balance, it always seems to be perceived as, we want to take up your spots, we want to claim your spaces. And the reality is that's just not happening. I mean, there's 50% of women in this country. That means there's space for women to take up these roles, but that fear that we are stealing those spaces, those power, I think that's why we see such resistance coming when we try and push for that change to happen.
Mama Colette, that power exists within a system. Is it then the fear, or is it the people that are committed to their comfort zones that don't allow those power dynamics to shift within the system?
What I think is happening is that this constructed power that is so irresistible, those that suffering, that are impacted more by it, they seem to be fighting on their own and leaving others behind. We have communities, we have those that are being defined by the system as the marginalized, the historically marginalized. So if there is no understanding in terms of what are the impact, what are these communities are enduring, what is their understanding of the lack of power, recognition of their power versus the power that I am fighting, it makes us, to be perpetually fighting and sometimes moving in circles because it's now struggles that are divided and not united and leaving others behind. And that is the reason why there's so much division, there's so much impact in some of the areas whereby those power, the structural powers are remaining like it's irresistible. They cannot be outrooted. They remain the same for people.
And then can we get into the nitty-gritty? When we talk about power and we talk about the power that exists, what are we actually talking about? Are we talking about where the leadership is sitting at? Are we talking about how, if I find myself within an organization, I'm almost immediately, it clicks into me that the person in power here, whether he's sitting in the same seat as me, next to me, is a white man, it means he's in power? Or is it a punch-down dynamic? What are we talking about when we talk about power?
Yeah, we're talking about a very special, a very unique dimension. The power that we have. It's not necessarily a vertical and horizontal application. It is the power that is, created deliberately to analyze, to divide. It can even come as a voice. The voice that seems to be attracting attention. The voice that seems to gain inroads. It is the power that a person who sits here might be more powerful than the person who's sitting outside because their issue, because their voice cannot be heard. They are marginalized, access to power, their own power, which is not recognized, and maybe, amplifying my own power, because I need my power to be recognized. So it is that kind of power that we are seeing, and when we come into those institutions and organizations, then we will realize that the bottom-up approach becomes very, very key as to how do we even make inroads in the institutions, in the government. We are losing, impact, to make impact, because then, as soon as we arrive there, the masses that should be carrying that power, that voice, get minimized. No understanding. We are not singing the same song. We are not in the same struggle. Other people, they have not even come out to appreciate the equality, equality that we are experiencing, and the equity and the justice, because then they have been there left. Their voice, their power is non-existent. It's not recognized.
Koketo, let's dig deeper now. Let's go to the corporate world. You're in advertising, you're in marketing. A lot of what we see in the world, we see on billboards, we see on TV, we see in the media is amplified because you have the power to amplify it. Or do you? So how much of an impact does that have, and how much does the system within the advertising world impact what we see and what we perceive as power in society?
So I think a lot of what we do in advertising really shapes culture and shapes equity in the environments that we live in. And the moment the power doesn't sit in an equitable space, you see it showing up in the world as well. And that's a dangerous place for us to be in, right?
And when we say equitable, we mean we need to be seeing the black woman being represented.
Exactly.
We need to see
Diversity.
people living with disabilities being seen on multimedia platforms.
100%. So I think the biggest thing is that when I, for instance, walk into rooms and brands want to talk about brand plans and strategies for the year, a lot of the time you'll hear the phrase, we really want to represent the South Africa of today, or play within culture and live in culture. And when you look around the room, I always like to do this, look around the room, who's briefing in the job? Who is the one who's going to be directing the creative? Who's going to be the one approving the creative? And if you look around and the room is not diverse, we've already disappointed our clients and our consumers, because we are not representing within the spaces that we are working as well. So how do we even have an understanding of what people are living like outside? So I really believe it's really important for us to immerse ourselves in the work and the spaces and the people that we talk about, because if we are, for instance, going to sit in a room of, let's say, 5 white people, but we are talking about Gugulethu, how do they have a good frame of reference and points of view of the people that they're speaking about?
Titi, you know how many times I've been in situations, and I'm going to throw you under the bus because you're the only guy here, where you see a media statement of perhaps a dispute between a male and a woman on social media, right? There's a dispute, the male puts out a statement, and he says all the right things. And then you then overhear a conversation as Olweto in a restaurant that is contra to what you saw in the statement. You know? Why are men so resistant to systemic change when it comes to actually implementing the systemic change? But they say the right things, which tells me they know what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah. Ngazile ukuthi mangizala you're going to throw us under the bus, but which never know when's all the gents are here. I just think one of the things that have been a barrier is the culture system in our families. If you look at the past struggles there, I'll give you a simple example. If you've got a partner or a wife who's a housewife, Now, there's a systematic power struggle there because by virtue of her being a housewife, there's this perception that actually that's something not to be taken seriously, and yet this is a person who's running an entire household. Now, you look at that and you flip the script and you have a guy who's a house husband. Now the dynamic changes there completely because nobody takes him seriously because he's not supposed to be in that position. So I think there's a lot of cultural beliefs that we have to unlearn, and that also has a ripple effect in organizations because you carry that power into those organizations. And I think that's why a lot of us men struggle with women who carry power at work and have to relinquish that power at home. And that's a balance that none of us want to talk about. And I think it's a struggle for us as men. And it's a struggle for a lot of women to kind of disengage from being a powerful woman at work and have to be submissive at home. That whole notion of submissiveness versus running with power is something that we need to have open dialogue about as men.
But you don't automatically submit, you submit to something. And I think what's happening is we're not having dialogues like this culturally in community. We're having them on panels such as this, but the everyday person, as we step outside there, like I'm saying, we know the language, we know what to say, we know how to have the conversations, but we're not taking it beyond here because you can't have this conversation with your boys over whiskey.
Definitely.
You're not talking about the cars that you saw.
No, absolutely. But the greatest challenge that we experience as men, obviously, amongst ourselves is obviously we don't speak about the struggles we face, whether at home or at work. You might find that you are a man and you're reporting to a woman who's stronger than you, and just that dynamic throws you off because now you have to go home and be a different person. You've got so much power in your family dynamic, but then you have to come back to work to someone who's really more powerful mentally, experience, qualifications-wise, and you have to strike a balance as a man with that, and it's not easy.
How do we then hold institutions, Cameron, institutions, firstly? Secondly, how do we hold the everyday man, male presenting individual accountable? Because right now accountability seems to be in a strongly worded email rather than actual play. How do we hold institutions and the people that have that punch down effect accountable?
I think the first thing that comes to mind is the different forms of power one can have. Because if we look at power one-dimensionally, then it's very hard to have this conversation. So when I think of power, I think of, for example, bodily autonomy, being able to know and make decisions about your own body. I think of knowledge and research, being able to have studies done for women, about women, and how, for some reason, when it comes to women, we're almost not allowed to be the knowers, the providers of knowledge and information. And that puts us on the back foot when it comes to power because we're not being allowed to own spaces, to own knowledge, to own so many different things. And so I think it's so complex because if we're thinking corporations and how do we hold them accountable, they have the policies, and I did my thesis on black female legal practitioners because I wanted to understand the intersectionality between race and gender in a male-dominated space. And when having these conversations and these interviews, the thing that kept coming up is there's policies. That's great. But I think one of the speakers mentioned the All Boys Club, the informal network, the parts that aren't necessarily written in paper that we don't pay attention to. And so I think it's so much more than just, like you said, an email or policies on paper. And I have to bring in my GBV advocacy, all the legislations and acts we have in place. Fantastic. But the lacking is our implementation. We don't see genuine, authentic implementation. We don't see people in leadership positions pushing for implementation. So when we think of how do we hold them accountable, that's our CEOs holding their seniors accountable and saying, why don't we have more women in these spaces? That's the hiring team being able to say, why are we not looking at these people and considering this? That is the medical space prioritizing women's voices and recognizing that they do know what they're talking about when it comes to the body. That's schools indulging and teaching children and teenagers and even university students what inclusivity looks like, what fairness is. It's such a multi-layered approach. And so I think holding accountable means looking at all the spaces where power plays a role and how do we infiltrate and influence those spaces. And for the day-to-day person, I think I mentioned it earlier, but sociocultural influences cannot be shaken. We are social by nature. We are controlled by culture. We need to speak to that and challenge that. I mean, rape culture is a big crisis that we have across the world with the content that people are seeing. So if the culture that we're seeing embraces, encourages, and normalizes these almost, domination, controlling power dynamics, then we won't really see change for the day-to-day person. Because the young boy who's watching the movie or listening to the song or reading the book or having the locker room conversations that talk about taking someone home when they don't want to and slipping them this and doing that, then what are we doing? So I think on a ground level, there's a lot about that we need to change as well.
I'd like to add to that. I think a lot of the time we put the accountability on the next person. Accountability also starts with us as women in the room. If you know that there is a woman who is capable of the job, why aren't you advocating for that person? If you know that so-and-so has been spoken over and you know that they had something valid to say, why aren't you saying, excuse me, sir, so-and-so, I saw somebody needed to say something. Within our advertising industry, the Boys Club became a really big part of how I grew up into the industry. And at some point, I actually wanted to leave because I thought, I'm never going to find my voice here. And the one thing that made me pivot is realizing that the only way I'm going to be able to shift this is if I do something about it. And I left an agency because they didn't think my voice fit the context, right? I became the aggressive black woman who had an opinion, And then when I moved to another agency that was led by a white male, he gave me the space to speak
Shout
up
out to
and
Mike.
create the space that I wanted to create for black women in the advertising industry. And currently right now, we have a team of 83% women on our team in advertising. And 65% of those women are black. And that's unheard of in advertising because, a lot of the time you go to these big agencies and in leadership positions, you're sitting with a white woman or a white man or a black man. I think there was a growth of the black man in the industry and they were quite cliquey. They stick together, black men stick together, and I think that's another thing as black women we're not doing. We're not sticking together and speaking for each other, and sometimes we tend to pull each other down when we get to positions of leadership. For me, this was an opportunity to create an organization I call Co-Create, and at the time I thought, why me? I'm still learning the ropes, I'm still understanding the game. I haven't quite made it to where I need to make it, but I thought if I want the industry to be what I need to be, I need to create that space. And that's what we did. We created an organization of young African black women in the industry who are looking to move into leadership positions. And they have mentors in that space. And we're looking to really change the culture of the industry because there are women who are smart. There are women who are talented. And I walked into a room once that spoke about, that leads the industry in terms of creativity. And I asked, why can't we have platforms like this? And why aren't women leading or winning at these awards? And the comment that I got was, we can't find the woman. There are so many women in advertising who are doing such great work. They are the backbone of the industry, and yet they are not getting the validation that they deserve. So that was an opportunity for me to go, okay, cool, let's call all the women. And there are so many women who are leading organizations like Spotify, women who are leading organizations, across the board in many spheres, from marketing to creativity to, even traffic. I'm here together with this young lady, Itumiling. She is my accountability partner. And by accountability, I don't mean just in the advertising space. We walk together. I was in a space of my life where I felt like I'd burnt out, because advertising will do that to you. And last year I decided that I need to be more healthy because we are working late hours. We are showing up in every sphere of the world. You want to be the hyper independent, and she and I hold each other accountable to making sure that we stay healthy because mental health is wealth in every sphere of your life. So I think the accountability and the onus really just does stay with us, and people will start following what we're doing.
But specifically, right now, what you're finding in the media and advertising industry is black men clicking up. They've found a parallel, I want to say a parallel road
Yes.
in the advertising road, in the advertising industry to create their own system. And it's working for them. And it started from when Herd Boys was the in thing.
Yes.
And they've built on from that. So we haven't still found it as black women, where we can find a parallel path or a pathway where we can create our own system.
100%. And I think it just comes down to us being obsessive about celebrating and advocating for each other. The boys really do it well. They will stand up for each other. They will call each other if there's a job. They will call each other if there's a tender. The guys do that for each other. And I think that's where we as women need to be doing that more for each other. And you'll find that the more we drown out the noise, the more we will be able to lead those spaces.
But I want to agitate on this topic. Sorry, Ma'am Colette, because I'm going to bring you in. There's an important question I want to ask you. I want to agitate a little bit more on this topic. Another thing why I find men click up together, and we're very talented as black women in these spaces. But the reason why the men click up is that they still want to hold the power. You can't have them in power if we earn more, if we have the career, the right careers, if we don't need the men, if we don't need your money, if we don't need your support, if we just don't need you. Hence, men are so comfortable with holding on to that power. But I think we're slowly but surely coming to the realization as women that we only have each other. We only have each other, and we're clinging on to each other a lot more now to go, we've clocked them. We've clocked them.
Can I just speak on that a bit as well? Because I think as black women as well, to give us our flowers, we're dealing with two different forms of oppression and two ways our power is taken. It's not just our gender, it's not just our race, it's a combination. They call it misogynoir, the specific misogyny towards black women. And what that means is that the spaces that we have are so limited. When we get offered opportunities, there's a quota that needs to be met. It's not seen as, okay, let them take up spaces because they're qualified. It's okay, we need 3 black women in these positions, fine, we'll do these 3 black women. And then all the other black women are gonna fight for that spot because there are limited spots. And so when there's such scarcity of opportunity, you're not gonna be rooting for the other person because you are trying to root for yourself. And I think that's why I really like the point of creating your own opportunities in your own spaces, because unfortunately, currently the state of the world is not designed for black women. They don't want to see us empowered. They don't want to see us thriving. And so we are competing in a lot of ways to do that. And I think that's one of the saddest parts, is that the system is designed to put us against each other because that also keeps us disempowered. And I think I have so much empathy as a black woman, and for black women when we have these conversations, because when I see black women struggling, I'm like, it's not your fault. Like, I wish I could give them a hug and say, you are not the problem.
And when system. you see a black woman thriving, no, she fought multiple systems and multiple intersectionalities at the same time. Ma'am Colette.
Yeah, thank you very much. I was going to say that, issue of collaboration. This is another tool or opportunity for us as women to overcome the oppression, to overcome a patriarchy. And we are working in silos, and we are not embracing the diversity. The diversity is all those women with albinism, for example, women with disability, indigenous communities. How many of us do have collaborations or networks with women who are from rural areas, especially in the Karoo area, where they are still struggling, fighting for language, fighting for recognition in South Africa. We do have others, the Hindus and Jews. For many years, their marriages were not recognized. They were brought into South Africa by their spouses who left their civil right wives in their countries. Bring them. So we're talking about trafficking of young girls, trafficking of women are brought here. Their marriages are not recognized. Where do they go and to claim, their assets that have been accruing, that have been built up, that person can be divorced, can be thrown out of the marital household with no assets, with no benefits. So as I'm saying that, as women, we need to begin to appreciate the empowerment and working to collaborate. We have been conducting empowerment programs for diverse groups. I see my partners here from Lepeko. I also have my niece here who's been speaking about the traditional religious groupings that we need to bring on board, because as our brother here is talking about the patriarchy and the culture actually, they are being prepared in the morning or in those, what do you call those, makotlas. They are being prepared as young girls, as maidens. This is the practice. This is the culture. I come now with my education. I come with my constitution. I'm expressing myself, section 12, section 9. Who am I speaking to? You see? So we need to break those barriers that we have created, that have been created by the very patriarchy, and that we are benefiting. Their beneficiaries. The beneficiaries are not only male, are not only white male. The academicians as well. Those people who cannot access the grassroots, those organizations or individuals that cannot engage and speak the language, explaining to the grassroots their dilemma and how to overcome, they'll be using who? So you become a spinning boat, and you are not appreciated in terms of funding. You rely on, you are a volunteer, you survive by stipend. When people are earning incomes, when people have got budget, your issue, you speak about your issues. What they do, they go back, develop a concept, they run with it. And who's gonna be a springboard? It is you who's familiar with the situation on the ground. So issue of empowerment and simplification of all these mechanisms. We are working on all the treaties that South Africa has ratified to change the status quo, to gain equality, the culture, the constitution. If I go to rural community and start saying, I've come to teach you about SIDO, what is that? They need to be simplified. We advocate for this kind of change. Others have moved very fast, they're advancing, they can see the progress. Others are behind. The gap between us and the people on the ground is widening. So we need to change our approaches. We need to change the way we've been doing things, and not, we are speaking alone. We are speaking with the converted. And using that language of ours, we're leaving out others. The last point is, when you go and say, I'm a feminist in KwaZulu-Natal, what is a feminist? What are you talking about? So we need to go back. It is our responsibility, as you're saying. It is our duty that we change the status quo. And the documents that we have, the policies, are not human beings. They're not going to speak to people. They need a person like yourself. You are a woman human rights defender in terms of the policies. International law recognize each and every one of us. The Universal Declaration says you individually or collectively with others, regardless of your age. As long as you are concerned, as long as you are advocating for the rights of others, like you're advocating for equality, for justice, and against discrimination and oppression, you are a woman human rights defender. Thank you very much.
Very sobering.
Extremely sobering. I think she's got a valid point. I just also wanted to address this one-size-fits-all blanket approach of they. It was worrisome for me to sit here and listen, because I do believe that there's a lot of men in positions of power that are doing their best to change the narrative in so many ways. I'll give you an example. 90% of my staff are women, and that's intentional, because it's part of my way of changing the narrative. And I'm sure I also know of a couple of other men that are also very intentional about changing the narrative. The problem comes in when you use this one-size-fits-all blanket approach of they. It's almost like it's you guys against us. And I think those are the things that cause challenges over the long run. And it will affect how we're actually empowering the youth as well. Because remember, they're the ones that are going to end up taking over power and taking over what has traditionally been there, and not actually changing the narrative in terms of where we should be changing and putting people that are qualified for the job. And then others can come later. So I really worry when you guys keep talking about they.
I get that, valid. I think if I ask you what color is rice, you're going to say? If I ask you what color is rice, you're going to say? Because there's black rice, there's brown rice, there's many kinds of rice, but the majority of people enjoy what? White rice. If I ask you the experience, general female experience in South Africa, what it feels like from a woman, well, from a man, there will be a blanket approach. Not to say there's other experiences that are there, or other men that do things differently, but it's the general experience. It's going to take men like you to then go out and hold other men accountable.
I completely agree with you, and I just want us to be careful in how we word things, because it can change the narrative in terms of how we perceive things. And unfortunately, when you hear of these bosporas that happen, that's exactly that. It's because we already know that we're already painted into a particular paintbrush. We get called men are trash, and all those things, which at the end of the day, you gotta dig deeper.
But not from this panel. I don't think this panel. Yeah.
This is a more progressive panel. We're trying to create action points on how we move this country forward and our society forward.
I'd like to add to that. I think you make a very important point, right? But a lot of the time when women or people try and stand up for each other or stand up for themselves, it suddenly feels like it's an aggressive stance against the next person. It isn't a stance against the person. It's a pro-woman, not anti-men, right? So I think it's really important to remember that when we are talking about our own empowerment, we need to be aggressive in the fact that if we don't start talking aggressively about the change that we want, we are never going to receive it. And I openly speak about having male allies. And not just male allies, people from different races. My background, my grandmother was a domestic worker, and she raised me in a home where her employer got me an education in a private school. And that's why I have the accent, Kinalinyon. Right? And from that, I was given opportunities by white people. It wasn't black people that gave me the opportunities. And a lot of the time when you start speaking pro-black, people think, oh, we get a bit there. You're not making yourself better. You see an opportunity that you were given. I was given opportunities by people who would never have given me the opportunity elsewhere had I come from the background my grandmother grew up from, right? So I believe in giving women opportunities because my siblings didn't get the opportunities that I got. My siblings, right? And today I can go and work on stages or direct television ads. And let me tell you, that is a huge feat. Because when I step on set and say I'm the creative director, people look at me like, what? You know? So opportunities like this don't come, openly and far and wide. That's why I always make sure that when I speak of women, and the opportunities that they deserve. I speak with intention and aggressiveness because nobody's going to do it for us, you know? So that's it.
Did you want to add something?
I do. I
Okay,
do.
go ahead.
I'm. Maybe it's my generation, but I think right now we are witnessing a backwards trend of women's rights and women's ability to decide what happens to them. And unfortunately, the people in power who are deciding these are men. Majority of CEOs in companies are men. Most of the leadership positions in the world are men. And the majority of them, unfortunately, are not doing the work that you're doing. And I think that's why the conversation ends up being a blanket statement. And someone made a comment once about sweets. They said, if you knew one sweet was poisoned in this little bag of sweets, would you eat it? Just out of curiosity, would you guys eat it? If you knew one of the sweets was poisoned, would you have it?
No.
Yeah, because you don't know for sure. And that's the experience of a woman. You're telling me this, but I don't know for sure if every man here is the good man that you're talking about, if every man has the philosophy you have, and most of them, unfortunately, do not act like they do. And I think when we speak about these things, it's easy to think, like you said, either pro or against, when the reality is it's more of a spectrum. It's not just for and against. It's, okay, well, you're not doing the bad thing, but you're hanging out with the person who does the bad thing. Or you're okay with the person who does the bad thing. Or you ignore the bad thing, but you're not actively, outwardly advocating, pushing against, seeing this kind of work done. So I think that's why it's coming out that way. And believe me, I mean, my partner's there, my best friend partner's there. These are men who are allies, who do push back, who do speak up. So it's not that we don't surround ourselves with good men, but it is terrifying how many aren't.
And I'd
so
like to say also the
important.
work that TT does is amazing, by the way. I got to meet TT through a client of ours, and he can speak to this, but he's doing amazing work for women and young girls in the community through period education. Not all men are bad, but what we're saying is that there's opportunity for men like TT to educate the rest of the men as well. So he's a great ally to have in your pocket, by the way. So if you ever want to have somebody who's going to teach women around you, empower women around you, speak to this guy.
Yeah. I just also want to add something that, yes, we do recognize the role that our young men and elderly that are busy, assisting in transforming the status quo. However, I sometimes come back very disappointed that the very same, actors or sector that I shouldn't feel comfortable, that actually they hear me, they understand me. It's not about how you perceive things, like you are identifying things that will make me feel good. It's about hearing my needs and responding to the issues that I'm raising. So most of the time, I come back very disappointed, but that doesn't mean we discourage you. Continue doing the job. I just want to mention a very serious case whereby we've been supported by this particular male person occupying a very high position of power. And on the 11th hour, he let us down by just making that statement that shocked all of us, because a resolution was passed which was promoting the rights of women and young girls. And that person says, this thing is evil. The words he uttered, he mentioned there, we all came back and realized that we have a long way to go. We shouldn't take it for granted that they understand us. So there will be mistakes that you are making on the way. And the minute men start raising concern as to how a woman can express themselves, that's when we lose it. How I should cry, how I should express my plight, because I'm the victim, I'm the one who is receiving, I'm the survivor. So there is no way you can express it the way I feel. So it's something that you need to be conscientized, empowered, and be willing to hear, because you are not a woman, you are not facing those challenges.
Thank
I think before we close off, I want to open up to just 2 questions. Oh, like hands just shut. Okay, we'll do one, a bonus one. So we'll start there, 1, 2, and then 3.
My name is Lesego Ledwaba. Please don't come for me. Ke kopa go tla ka a bit of a different narrative, ne? I think let's acknowledge, guys, the shift, right? I think we've been dwelling so much on men. I mean, we've been sitting here from what? From 10 o'clock, right? Let's acknowledge the powerful women that are in the room, right? 100%. Let us acknowledge the seeds that we have now as women, regardless of the percentage. It might not be at 100% yet. It might be at a 5%. But let's acknowledge the shift, Batung. Right? I feel like sometimes we dwell so much on men, this, white Afrikaners. Guys, we've got so much power now. Now I've got to sit where I am. Right? And I believe so many of you as well. So can we move? Or can maybe we make a change in our small communities? Instead of us sitting and saying men, can we make changes in our small communities, guys? Can we just do that? Abu Titi, we acknowledge the work that you do. They're not coming for you. We are just saying there needs to be more. But there is a shift. There is a shift. Let's acknowledge that.
My name is Dieketseng Diale, and some call me Lady D. I am from an organization called the Lady of Peace Community Foundation, Lopeko. Ostumi, thank you once again for creating this platform. And we see it grow leaps and bounds. Question. The title is saying, Reimagining Power Structures. What is this power structure? What is it that we are looking for as South African women going forward? Abu Titi, you have just mentioned, or you've got 3,000 men following you, and you're going to invite us to that platform. The structure of power is leaning towards achieving a balance, right? Now, what we are trying to do at the foundation is to start in the household. Okay? So, what would you say from a peace-building perspective? What does the structure of a household look like?
Absolutely.
Looking at what the business holds are having. Let's take it from a household to a business hold, so that we can employ all the frameworks, all the structures, all the, the nuts and bolts of how to become the best family in the community. Because if we don't get it right there from the household, we'll never get it right in the society. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Maschaba Dimakatso Tsotetsi. Oslesego actually said exactly what I wanted to say. And the reason why I actually resonate with her statement is going back to the discussion that Titi and Oskoketse had about men. And with her, from the statement that she made, I also have an organization called Unleashing Great Minds. And that's where I'm actually changing the very same narrative to say, let's stop saying men are doing this, men did that. Let us empower the young ones with the knowledge to say to them, this is what I'm going to do for myself. When you get to the workplace or when you get into business, there's a lot of things that people and men will use to lure you. I mean, in the first session, they spoke about being ready for sponsorship or for funding, right? Sometimes we don't know that you are ready. And you meet a TT, sorry to use an example, but you're here. You meet a TT in a panel and you actually are interviewed. And you do very well in the interview. They check you, they score you 10 out of 10. but you don't know whether you've qualified or not, or whether you met the criteria. Titi then comes and calls you, Mas Chaba, can we please meet at the Hilton Hotel? I need to give you feedback. Oh, okay, you're excited, because now Titi called you. You don't know that he's actually supposed to call you back into the office, not the Hilton Hotel. Titi then comes and says, so Mas Chaba, you know, there was about 25 of you, and it was a very tough decision to make. You made it to the top 3, but this is not where it ends, you know? In order for you to make it through to the top list, you actually have to sleep with me. Little do you know that you actually made it. You were successful. All your papers checked, you know, and now you're caught up in between, is this what I want? Do I want it so bad that I'm willing to sleep with Titi? No, I don't. Then Titi can keep it. Because then tomorrow, you are going to get it out of merit. And then at the back of your mind, you're going to start telling these young ones that if an opportunity like that comes, sleep with him. Because I got it, because I slept with him. But in actual fact, you got it on merit because all your things checked. So I agree with we then need to change that narrative. Much as we need to tell them that this is what men will do, but it's not only men, even women do it. Even women will do it to you as well. So it's all about saying, I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm capable of. I know what I can do. I know what I bring to the table. I am the table, in actual fact. Thank you.
Got my question here. If power was shared, what would it actually look like for you?
Well, if power will be shared, yes, I think that power, it will have the voice. It will definitely have the voice of a person living in rural areas. It will be for a person that has struggled for decades, you know, under the apartheid, that had not benefited, that had not seen the fruit of democracy. It will be that power that recognizes that women, human rights defenders, they've got the power. And they are on the decision-making table. And they can monitor, and they can hold the state, the responsible officials accountable. And there's that power that comes in with support, resources, you know, to ensure that there's an opportunity for everyone, especially those that have not received anything, because their voice has been left out, and they are facing polarization. They're living in deplorable conditions, and they are key stakeholder in building peace. Peace is the instrument that these communities, you know, they excel in. They are able to access the taxi drivers, for example, traditional leaders, faith-based organization, indigenous communities, and all the diverse communities. So that is a balanced voice that I'll definitely say we are making an inroad. We are changing, we are transforming the society. Thank you.
I think for myself, as a mom to a young girl at the age of 10, I always use her as a frame of reference for the type of world that I hope that she will one day live in. I always use her as an example. So even in the work that we do, sometimes she comes and she's an extra, you know. We need to teach our kids how to be economically savvy, financially savvy, worldly savvy. And I think that starts, like you mentioned, in the home. The moment we educate our kids and empower our kids to be, you know, ready for the world that is out there, because the world is what it is, guys. We are facing a world war. There's nothing we can do about it, but are we preparing our kids for the world that is out there? And I think that is the important thing, is that power starts in the home. It starts in the places where we are educating our kids, instilling mindsets, attitudes, confidence. I think confidence is such a big thing for a young child. You know, the moment you instill confidence, that child can do anything, stand anywhere, do anything. And I think the moment we can do that, we'll have a world where young girls are, taking over the world.
I like that a lot. I think you're speaking into my thoughts, and I think you also mentioned it, which is, for me, it starts with children, because I think that they are the most open-minded, the most receptive, and children spend most of their time at schools. And I think utilizing schools as a platform to encourage and educate both boys and girls on consent, boundaries, confidence, communication, equal opportunities. I mean, when I was in school, science was for the boys and then girls could do art. Like, starting from there, teaching them that they are very equal in these spaces, that they have equal opportunities, letting little ones play with whichever toys they feel like, not teaching them from like a young age that you have to abide by these certain norms and these standards. That for me would already balance the playing field. And I think on the other side, as an academic person, having women in academia, writing about women, by women, because I think the power of research, the power of study, the power of academics, and the way that education can influence things, the changes that can happen, the works that can be done, I think that's so important as well. So I think for me, power looks like that as well. Seeing things for women, by women.
So for me, it's about obviously having empathy and understanding the other side of the coin. But it goes back to the family unit. I mean, I can't stress that enough. I look at how I'm raising my two girls. We've just written a menstrual book to teach fathers to get involved in the menstruation process of the girl child. Because traditionally,
It's one thing to unlearn, it's one thing to build. Because we can't keep renovating the same broken system and reinventing the same broken system over and over and then call it progress. I'd like to leave you with those words for today. Thank you so much.
Can we please give them one last round of applause?